I'm parked in front of a locked gate while two sheriff's deputies look on. And Marla Voss, the HOA president, who dialed 911 on me 3 times this week, is yelling that I'm trespassing on her neighborhood's private road. Her cheeks are flushed, and her finger is jabbed toward my chest. She's telling the deputies I need to be hauled off immediately. I let her finish. Then I take out my phone, open the county recorder app, and tilt the screen toward her. "Ma'am," I say, keeping my tone steady, "you just slapped a padlock onto my road. This whole valley belongs to me. All 12,200 acres, including the soil under your $800,000 house. And by the way, I also control the water source your subdivision depends on." The color drains from her face like someone pulled a stopper. Both deputies step back a half pace. One of them clears his throat and suddenly decides his boots are interesting. I let the silence hang, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me rewind 3 months and show you how a simple plan to fix up my grandfather's cabin turned into a masterclass in what happens when a Karen picks a fight with the wrong landowner. You're probably wondering how someone just owns a valley. Well, it starts with my grandfather, a handshake deal gone wrong, and an HOA president who really should have run a title search before installing that gate. My grandfather, everyone called him Pop, staked out this valley in 1952. 1,200 acres of Colorado mountain pine, a spring-fed creek, and quiet so deep you could hear your own heartbeat. He filed his claim with the federal government, built a cabin with his own hands, and raised my mom there. No electricity until 1973, no phone line until 86. Just Pop, the mountains, and a work ethic that could make a mule look lazy. I spent every summer there from age 6 to 18. Pop taught me to fish that creek, read animal tracks, and stack firewood so tight a chipmunk couldn't slip through. The cabin smelled like pine sap and coffee. The porch faced east so you could watch sunrise turn the valley gold. Closest thing to magic I've ever known. Then 1989 arrived. Pop was 73 and needed cash for medical bills, and a developer named Victor Caradonna came calling. Caradonna wanted to put up houses. Pop didn't want a subdivision in his valley, but he was practical. They struck a deal. Pop would sell 45 acres, just the flat meadow at the lower end of the valley. Caradonna could build there, but Pop had conditions. "You can have that meadow," Pop told him, "but the road stays mine. The spring stays mine, and you leave the upper valley alone." Caradonna agreed. They signed papers. The deal was clean. By 1994, 6 homes sit on that meadow. Good families. Pop got along with everyone. He'd wave when they drove past his gate, sometimes share venison during hunting season. It worked. Then 2010 hit. Pop died. Heart attack, quick and clean. The way he'd have wanted. I inherited everything. The cabin, the ground, all 1,200 acres, minus the 45 he'd sold. But I was buried in my tech career in Seattle, building cybersecurity systems, pulling 80-hour weeks. The cabin sat empty. I paid property taxes every year, but I didn't visit. 15 years slid by like that. 15 years letting Pop's legacy collect dust while, this year, 2025, I burned out. Staring at code until 2 a.m., living on energy drinks and imposter syndrome, I realized I was 30 M deep into a life I didn't recognize. I needed out. That's when I remembered the cabin. I could work remote, restore the place, breathe air that didn't taste like recycling. So I called the county in April to ask about permits for repairs. The clerk was friendly. "Oh, you mean that old place up in Ridgehaven Estates?" I paused. "Ridgehaven? What now?" Turns out while I was gone, the subdivision grew. The original developer retired to Arizona in 2015. A new builder bought the land, added 34 more homes between 2018 and 2020. 40 houses total now, and they'd formed an HOA. I got a voicemail that same day. Professional tone, polite but firm. "This is Marla Voss, president of Ridgehaven Estates HOA. We're concerned about the abandoned structure at the upper end of our community. We need to discuss community standards. Please call me back." I didn't think much of it. I figured I'd show up, introduce myself, maybe bring cookies for the neighbors, be a decent guy. Yeah, that's not what happened. Let me tell you what I didn't know then. While I was in Seattle writing code, Marla Voss built herself a little empire. She volunteered as HOA president when the new phase launched in 2018, ran unopposed. Within a year, she registered a property management LLC, her own shop, and convinced the board to pay her $3,000 a month to handle community affairs. She wasn't just the HOA president. She was pulling a paycheck from every homeowner in that subdivision. $3,600 a year per household in HOA dues, and a slice of that went straight into her pocket. She had a vested interest in control, and control meant making sure everyone followed her rules. Rules she wrote, rules she enforced, rules that, as I'd soon learn, she improvised as she went. The other thing I didn't know, Marla's husband, Harlan, had been a county plan commissioner until 2019. He voted to approve that second phase of Ridgehaven Estates back in 2017, the expansion that turned 6 homes into 40. At the time, Marla's LLC was already on file. She'd already signed a preliminary management agreement with the builder. Harlan never disclosed that on his ethics form. When someone finally noticed, he stepped down rather than face a hearing. So Marla guarded her turf, and I was about to walk right into it, holding a stack of property documents she didn't know existed. I reached the valley entrance on a Saturday morning in late April. 72 degrees bluebird sky, the kind of day Pop called God showing off. I'd driven 6 hours from Seattle with my truck loaded, tools, camping gear, a month's groceries. I was ready. The first thing I noticed was new. 2 stone pillars flanked the road entrance, each around 8 feet tall, with a wrought iron sign stretched between them. Ridgehaven Estates, private community. I slowed. That sign hadn't been there on Google Street View. I kept driving. The road looked good. Recently graded, fresh gravel. Someone had been keeping it up. About a 4-mile in, I hit the problem. A chain-link gate spanned the road, 10 feet wide, 8 feet tall, industrial grade, keypad lock, and a camera on top. A sign, residents only, access code required. No warning, no alternate route, just a barrier across what used to be open road. I parked, got out, studied the keypad. A phone number on a laminated card zip-tied to the fence. For access, call HOA office. I called, got voicemail, left a polite message explaining I owned property up the valley and needed the gate code. Then I waited. 45 minutes in my truck, windows down, listening to the creek. I couldn't quite see through the trees, nothing. I tried again, voicemail. I pulled up Google Maps, hunting for another way in. There wasn't one. The valley is a box canyon. Mountains on 3 sides. This road is the only vehicle access. I could hike around the gate, but my truck wasn't getting through. I grabbed my pack, locked the truck, and started walking around the barrier. I'd gone maybe 200 yards when I heard an engine. A black SUV roared up from inside the subdivision, spraying gravel. It skidded to a stop. The driver's door flew open, and out stepped a woman in her late 50s. Blonde highlights, white capris, tennis shoes that had never seen a trail. She already had her phone up recording. "Sir," she said, voice sharp as a box cutter, "you are trespassing on private property. I've called the sheriff." That was my introduction to Marla Voss. I tried to explain. "Ma'am, I own the cabin about 2 miles up this road. I've been trying to reach the HOA office for the code." She cut me off. "There are no legal residences above the subdivision. That structure was condemned by the county." I blinked. "Condemned by who?" "This is a gated community. You need to leave immediately, or you'll be arrested for trespassing." Her phone kept rolling. I stayed calm. Years of dealing with hostile IT managers taught me never to escalate when someone's filming you. I have paperwork showing I own property here. I'm happy to wait for the sheriff and clear this up. She didn't lower the phone. 20 minutes later, Deputy Colin Mercer arrived. Young guy, maybe mid-30s, uniform creases still crisp. He took statements from both of us. I showed him everything on my phone, photos of the cabin from my last visit in 2010, a letter from my grandfather's estate lawyer, property tax records showing continuous payment. Marla showed him nothing but a recording and plenty of attitude. Deputy Mercer looked at my documents, looked at Marla, then back at me. "Ma'am," he told Marla, "he's got documentation indicating property ownership." That's not trespassing. This is a civil property dispute, not a criminal matter. The HOA owns this road, Marla said. He can't just... That's exactly what makes it civil, Deputy Mercer said. You need to either let him through or take it to court. I'm not arresting anyone over a property line disagreement. Marla's jaw tightened. But she pulled out her phone, tapped in the code, 742968. I memorized it, and the gate slid open. This isn't over, she said as I passed. I got back in my truck and drove up to the cabin. It was rougher than I expected. Windows broken. Mice had nested in the kitchen cabinets. The roof leaked in 2 places, but the bones were solid. Pop built things to last. I spent the weekend cleaning, documenting damage, taking photos for insurance, and that's when I found it. In the closet behind a false panel Pop had built, I found a small fireproof safe. The combination was my birth year. Inside was everything I needed. The safe held a stack of papers in a manila folder, each one sealed in a plastic sleeve. On top sat a sticky note in Pop's handwriting. Evan, if anyone gives you trouble about the road, this box has everything you need. Love, Pop. I photographed every page and uploaded them to 3 separate cloud drives. Cybersecurity paranoia pays off. Here's what I found. First, the original 1952 land patent. Federal government to James Holloway. 1,200 acres, clear title, fee simple absolute. That's lawyer talk for you own it, period, no strings. Second, survey maps from 1989 showing the exact boundaries of the 45 acres Pop sold to Caradonna. I pulled out my phone, overlaid them on Google Maps. The subdivision sat completely within that 45-acre parcel. Everything else, the upper valley, the road, the spring, still belonged to Pop's estate, which meant it belonged to me. Third, the purchase agreement from that '89 sale. I read it 3 times. There was a clause highlighted in yellow. Buyer acknowledges seller retains ownership and control of all access roads, trails, and infrastructure outside platted lots. Access rights granted via easement subject to annual maintenance fee of $1,000, escalating 3% annually, payable to seller by January 15th each year. I did the math. From 2010, when Pop died, to 2025, that's 15 years of unpaid fees. At 3% compound growth, the developer owed Pop's estate roughly $47,000. And the agreement stated that if fees went unpaid for more than 1 year, the easement terminated. The developer defaulted. The HOA had no easement. They'd been using my road without permission for 15 years. Fourth, a water right certificate from 1968. Pop had filed for the spring that fed the creek. In Colorado, water rights work on a first-in-time, first-in-right basis. Pop's claim predated the subdivision by half a century. I owned the water source. I sat on the cabin floor, documents spread out like puzzle pieces, and started laughing. It wasn't a cheerful laugh. Monday morning, I called my mom's old college roommate, Elaine Cho. She's a real estate attorney in Denver who specializes in property disputes. I sent her photos of everything. She called back 2 hours later. Evan, she said, and I could hear the grin in her voice. Do you realize what you have here? I think so. That old rancher just handed you a nuclear option. They've been trespassing on your property for 15 years. They owe you $47 grand, and you control their water. This isn't a property dispute. It's checkmate. What do I do? We file a formal notice with the county recorder asserting your ownership and the easement default. We send certified copies to the HOA and Marla personally. We give them 72 hours to remove anything on your property. Then, if they don't, you take your bolt cutters and remind them whose road it is. Wednesday morning, Elaine filed the paperwork. Thursday, the certified letters went out. I spent the weekend walking the land with Ray Thornton, the surveyor who'd worked with Pop back in the 90s. Ray was in his 60s now, retired, but he remembered every marker. Your Pop was a good man, Ray said as we hiked. Marla's been making life miserable for everyone. Let's lock this down. We found the original monuments, photographed them, logged everything. Monday morning, 72 hours after our notice, the gate still stood. So I drove down with Ray filming, read a prepared statement aloud identifying myself as the landowner, and cut that chain with the biggest bolt cutters Home Depot sells. Click. Clack. The chain hit the dirt. I dragged the gate aside and posted new signs. Private road, easement access by permission only. Owner E. Holloway. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. It wasn't Marla. It was her attorney, Mitchell Crane, a semi-retired guy who usually did wills and trusts and was way out of his depth. "Mr. Holloway," he said, "I represent the Ridgehaven Estates Homeowners Association. You've destroyed HOA property and we're filing an emergency restraining order. You'll be served tomorrow." I stayed calm. "Mr. Crane, I didn't destroy HOA property. I removed an obstruction from my private road. Your client installed a gate without authorization. I have documentation proving ownership. Your client has no recorded easement. We'll see what the judge says." He hung up. That evening, a FedEx driver delivered the lawsuit. Emergency hearing scheduled for Friday morning. Marla wanted the court to bar me from the road pending a full trial, claiming I was threatening community safety and that removing the gate was destruction of property. The filing included affidavits from 8 homeowners claiming they felt fear and harassment from my presence. I'd met exactly 0 of them. Tuesday morning, I got another visitor. Dale Morton, county code enforcement officer, apologetic guy, probably 50, with a clipboard and a tired look. Got a complaint about an unpermitted structure. He looked around the cabin. "This place was built in 1954, I said. "It's grandfathered under every code there is." Dale walked the perimeter, checked the foundation, looked at the roof. "Yeah, this is clearly legal construction. Someone's wasting my time." Out of curiosity, who filed the complaint? He glanced at his clipboard. "Can't officially say, but the form came in on HOA letterhead." "Noted." Dale handed me a card. "If they keep sending false complaints, call me. We take that seriously." After he left, I drove to Denver to meet Elaine in person. She'd already reviewed the lawsuit, and she was laughing. "Evan, this is amateur hour," she said. "She doesn't even allege ownership of the gate. She just says the HOA installed it for safety. That's not a legal argument. So what's our move? We file a counter motion for declaratory judgment. We ask the court to officially determine who owns what and compile all your evidence." We spent the whole afternoon preparing. Meanwhile, Marla was busy. Tuesday night, she called an emergency HOA board meeting. I didn't know this until later, but here's what happened. She pushed through a special assessment, $5,000 per household, to fund the lawsuit. Several board members were uneasy, but Marla bulldozed them. One man, Thomas, a retired teacher, voted no. He asked for more information about the property issue. Marla shut him down. "Do you want property values to crash because some squatters camping in the woods?" Thomas sat down, but he didn't forget. Wednesday morning, I was back at the cabin doing repairs when I heard a vehicle coming up the road. A silver Honda pulled up and out stepped Thomas. Mid-60s, glasses, cardigan, cautious look. "Mr. Holloway," he said. "I'm Thomas Reed. I'm on the HOA board. Can we talk?" "Sure." We sat on the porch. Thomas pulled a folder from his bag. "I didn't know about any of this until last week. Most of us didn't. Marla told us the road was county maintained, that we just needed the HOA to manage the inner streets." He handed me copies of documents. After that meeting, I checked the county GIS records. This road isn't on any county map. We've been lied to. "I'm not trying to hurt anyone," I said. "I just want to live here peacefully." "I believe you. But Marla just charged everyone $5,000 to fight you. Many families can't afford that. This is her vendetta, and we're paying for it. What do you want from me?" "The truth. What's the legal situation actually look like?" I showed him everything. The land patent, the survey maps, the defaulted easement, the water rights certificate. Thomas went pale. "She told us we owned the road." "You don't. You never did. The HOA was formed in 2018. My grandfather died in 2010. There's an 8-year gap where no one paid the easement fees. It terminated by default. What happens now? Friday, we go to court. If Marla can't prove ownership or easement rights, the judge will toss her restraining order. Then we negotiate. I'm willing to grant a new easement, but the HOA needs to acknowledge my ownership and pay the back fees. Thomas nodded slowly. That's fair. Can I testify if needed? Talk to your own lawyer first. But yes, that would help. He left. That night, the harassment got petty. Someone, probably Marla, called the sheriff claiming my truck was an abandoned vehicle. Deputy Mercer showed up for the third time that week. He looked exhausted. Evan, I'm sorry she keeps calling. I've logged all this as harassment against you, not the other way around. I appreciate that. Off the record, her husband used to be on the county planning commission. She's used to getting her way, but he retired under pressure a few years ago. Some ethics issue. Ethics issue? You didn't hear it from me. He left. I set up trail cameras around the cabin that night, cybersecurity instincts again. First night's footage, deer, raccoons, and at 2 a.m., Marla's black SUV creeping past the cabin turnoff before turning around. I texted the footage to Elaine. Is this creepy or just me? She replied, That's surveillance. Save it. She's trying to paint you as dangerous. Let her build her own undoing. Friday morning, we walked into Larkspur County Courthouse ready for battle. Judge Sandra Portman presiding, 30 years on the bench, silver hair pulled tight, reading glasses on a chain. She radiated no-nonsense energy. Marla sat at the plaintiff's table with Mitchell Crane. I sat with Elaine. We had 3 boxes of evidence. Judge Portman looked at Marla's filing, then at us, then back at Marla. Ms. Voss, I've reviewed your emergency motion. You're asking to bar Mr. Holloway from a road you claim as HOA property. Do you have a deed showing ownership? Crane stood. Your Honor, the road lies within community boundaries and has been maintained by the HOA for years. We rely on implied easement and prescriptive use. Counselor, Judge Portman said, not looking up, that's not what I asked. Do you have a deed or a recorded easement? Crane shuffled papers. We're claiming rights based on continuous use. So that's a no? Silence. Elaine stood. Your Honor, we have the recorded deed showing Mr. Holloway owns the access road. We have the 1989 subdivision agreement showing only 45 acres were sold. We have survey maps confirming those boundaries and the easement agreement showing it terminated due to non-payment in 2011. She laid out the papers like cards. Judge Portman spent 5 minutes reviewing them. You could hear the air hum. Finally, she said, Mr. Crane, based on preliminary review, Mr. Holloway appears to have superior claim to road ownership. Do you have any documentation proving HOA ownership or valid easement rights? Marla whispered frantically to Crane. He cleared his throat. Your Honor, we request a 2-week continuance to locate additional documentation. Judge Portman looked over her glasses. 2 weeks to find a deed you should have had before installing a gate? We believe there may be county records. I'm granting your continuance but denying the restraining order. Mr. Holloway may access his property freely. If you can't produce documentation by the next hearing, I'll dismiss this case and consider sanctions for frivolous litigation. Gavel down. Outside the courthouse, Marla confronted me, her face red, hands shaking. You think you're so clever, you'll never win this. I know people. That cabin needs to go, and you need to leave. Tell your attorney to call mine, I said. We can negotiate easement terms. I'm not negotiating anything. She stormed off and tore out of the parking lot. That weekend, I saw work crews at the subdivision entrance. Saturday morning, they were installing a second gate, this one where the Valley Road met the county highway. It was on their 45-acre parcel, technically their property. But it also blocked my only access to the highway. I called Elaine. Can she do this? It's tricky. If the gate's on subdivision land and blocks through access, it depends whether your easement explicitly includes highway connection. Let me check the '89 agreement. She called back an hour later. The original deal gave the developer easement rights across the subdivision to reach the county road, but it's unclear whether that passed to you as the remaining owner. You might need to establish prescriptive easement based on long-term use. So legally gray. Exactly. Her lawyer's playing a loophole. She can't block your road, so she's blocking the exit. By Sunday, the second gate was finished. Heavy steel, keypad lock, camera sign reading, private community, residents only, no through access. Monday morning, I drove down to test it. Locked. I called the HOA office. The receptionist sounded nervous. "I'm sorry, Mr. Voss." Said no access for non-residents. "I'm not a resident. I'm the landowner of the Upper Valley. Open the gate or I'll cut it." She said you threatened that. She's already called the sheriffs. Deputy Mercer arrived again, looking tired. "Evan, do you have documented easement across their property to reach the highway?" "I've used this road all my life. My grandfather built it." "But does it cross their recorded 45 acres? It's one continuous road." "I can't make that call. I can't let you cut a gate on their property without a court order." He radioed dispatch. "Civil matter, no crime." Then he left. Tuesday morning, I woke to heavy machinery sounds. I hiked down and found a construction crew digging a trench across the road, right at the edge of the subdivision line. 6 feet deep, 10 feet wide, completely impassable. The foreman saw me. "HOA hired us for emergency drainage work." "Where's your permit?" "Lady said it's an emergency. Permit's coming." I photographed everything. Called Elaine. Called Dale Morton. Dale arrived within an hour, furious. "They don't have a permit. Road work requires 72-hour notice and county approval. I'm issuing a stop work order." He handed the foreman a citation. "Fill that trench or your company gets fined." But the damage was done. The road was useless until repaired. I sat on a boulder staring at that trench and remembered something Pop used to say. "When someone tries to take your water, son, you've got them by the throat." And that's when I remembered the spring. I hiked back up to the cabin and pulled out Pop's old water rights certificate. 1968, senior priority status in Colorado. Water law is simple there. First in time, first in right. Pop had claimed that spring 50 years before the subdivision existed. I walked up to the spring house, a stone structure Pop built in the 60s to protect the source. Crystal clear water bubbled up from underground, flowing into a pipe that ran downhill. I followed the line. It fed directly into a holding tank at the subdivision's edge. Their entire water system ran off my spring. I called Elaine. "What happens if I shut off their water?" Long pause. "Legally, you could. You own the source. You have senior rights. But practically, that's the nuclear button. Every resident would turn against you. You'd be the villain, and it'd drag through court for years. I don't want to cut it off. I just want them to know I can." "That's leverage. Use it wisely." Wednesday. A call came from a number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Holloway, this is Teresa Ruiz. I'm a freelance journalist covering land use issues in Colorado. I saw your story on Reddit." "I didn't post anything on Reddit." "Someone did. You got a couple thousand upvotes on our legal advice. People tagged me since I wrote about HOA abuse last year. Can we talk?" She drove up Thursday, mid-40s, hiking boots, professional camera. We spent 3 hours reviewing everything. The documents, the timeline, the gates, the trench. She photographed the property, the maps, the spring house. "This is bigger than you," she said. "HOAs across Colorado are seizing control of roads they don't own. It's cutting off public lands, turning easements into private fences. Your story shows the pattern perfectly." "What do you need from me?" "Transparency. Timeline, documents, your side. And I'll need to ask Marla for comment. Fair warning, this will escalate. At this point, sunlight's my best disinfectant." Teresa spent Friday interviewing people. Thomas talked. 2 other homeowners spoke up, angry about the $5,000 assessment and the lies about property rights. Teresa also pulled records on Harlan Voss. Turns out Harlan had voted to approve Ridgehaven Estates Phase 2 in 2017 while serving on the county commission. His disclosure listed no conflicts, but Marla's LLC had already been registered the year before, and she'd signed a preliminary deal with the builder. Textbook conflict of interest. When the Ethics Board opened a probe in 2019, Harlan retired to dodge the hearing. Teresa's article dropped Friday afternoon on Mountain Land Weekly's website. Title: HOA President. blocks landowner from his own property while profiting from management fees. It broke down ownership records, survey maps, and county filings. The viral image was a side-by-side. Left, Marla's letter claiming HOA ownership of the access road. Right, a county recorder screenshot naming Evan Holloway as the owner. Caption: one of these is a public record. The other is creative writing. 8,000 shares in a day. Local Denver news picked it up. Comment sections exploded. This is why HOAs are tyranny. That Karen messed with the wrong guy. This sounds exactly like my neighborhood. Friday night, I got an email from Sandra, the HOA vice president. Subject: request for meeting. It was brief. Mr. Holloway, several board members were unaware of the full situation regarding property ownership. We'd like to meet with you and Ms. Cho to discuss resolution. Marla will not be present. Said to 5 other board members, 6 of 7 total, everyone except Marla. Saturday morning, I met the board at Thomas's house. 6 members present. Thomas, Sandra, and 4 others I hadn't met. They all looked tired. Sandra started. Mr. Holloway, we owe you an apology. Most of us didn't know Marla had a financial interest. We thought we were protecting property values. She told us the road was county maintained and you were trying to seize it. Thomas added, none of us knew about the water rights, the easement default, or that your grandfather only sold 45 acres. I looked around the room. These weren't enemies, just families who wanted peace. Can you explain the real legal standing? Sandra asked. Elaine joined on speakerphone, walking them through everything. The 200-acre patent, the limited sale, the lapsed easement, the water rights that predated it all. You could see the understanding sink in. What would a fair solution look like? Sandra asked. I'd been ready for that. I want to restore my grandfather's cabin and live here quietly. I don't want to hurt anyone's property values. I'll grant a permanent easement for road access, but the HOA must acknowledge my ownership, pay the back fees, and sign a fair maintenance agreement. The back fees are $47,000 over 10 years. That's $4,700 a year. Split among 40 homes, that's about $118 per house annually, under 10 a month. Thomas did the math. That's less than what we paid Marla's management company monthly. Exactly. Sandra looked around. Can we make this happen? A woman named Patricia said, we'd need community approval and to remove Marla from negotiations. She won't go quietly, someone warned. No, Thomas said, but we have the votes. 6 of 7 board members want peace, and after that article, the homeowners will too. Sunday, they called an emergency member meeting for Tuesday night. Marla caught wind and blasted an email to residents, claiming the board was caving to an outsider and that I was stealing our roads and water. She predicted property value collapse and called for a no-confidence vote. The community split. Maybe 15 households backed her. Most just wanted the chaos to stop. Monday morning, she made her fatal mistake. In desperation, she filed a new lawsuit accusing me of running an illegal commercial business, working remotely from the cabin, supposedly counted as home enterprise, and an unlicensed Airbnb. Pure fabrication. But in her filing, she included photos, shots of my truck, my cabin, my property, photos she'd taken while trespassing. She just admitted to a crime in court documents. Elaine spotted it instantly. She's finished. We'll file criminal charges using her own evidence. Monday afternoon, Elaine filed our motion for a declaratory judgment in district court, asking the judge to confirm, 1. Evan owns 1,155 acres, including the road. 2. The HOA has no easement due to default. 3. Evan may grant or deny access at will. And 4. The HOA owes $47,000 in back fees. She also filed a criminal trespass complaint against Marla. We hand-delivered copies to Marla, the board, and the local paper. Tuesday evening, the HOA meeting, 7 p.m. clubhouse. 34 or 40 households showed. Marla tried to run it. Sandra cut her off. Marla, you're suspended as chair for conflict of interest. You can't do that. I'm president. Bylaw 8.3 lets the board suspend officers for fiduciary breach. Thomas banged the gavel. Meeting proceeds without her as chair. Marla sat down, furious. The board presented the facts, maps, and timeline. We spent $67,000 on legal fees defending property the HOA doesn't own, Thomas said. Gasps. That's your special assessments and reserves. I spoke next. Explained my offer. Perpetual easement in exchange for recognition, back fees, joint maintenance. Otherwise, I revoke all access, and you sue for necessity. You'll spend hundreds of thousands fighting for years. Maybe you win. Maybe not. What about the water? Someone asked. Included in the easement. I'm not cutting anyone off. I just want peace. Relief swept the room. A motion passed. Authorized settlement talks with Evan Holloway. Vote 29 in favor, 4 against, 1 abstain. Marla and Harlan voted no. She stood shouting. This is insane. He's blackmailing you. Sandra stayed calm. Brenda, you're outvoted. The members have spoken. Marla stormed out. You'll regret this. Settlement talks took a week. Elaine and the new HOA attorney drafted terms. Evan grants perpetual easement to residents for road access. HOA pays $47,000 back fees over 10 years, starting June 1st. Road maintenance split 60-40 HOA to owner. Owner retains right to issue guest codes. All gates removed except optional gate at his cabin. HOA acknowledges his ownership and water rights. Mutual release of all claims. Elaine added one clause. The HOA must install a historical marker at the valley entrance reading Holloway Valley, Eston 1952. Homesteaded by James Pop Holloway. Protected for future generations. Cost split 50/50. The board approved unanimously. Marla didn't attend the vote. Monday, June 2nd, courthouse signing. Judge Portman presided. This is how property disputes should end, she said. Through negotiation, not escalation. She looked at me. Mr. Holloway, you could have made life hard for these families. Your restraint is commendable. She looked at the board. Verify property rights before making claims. Everyone signed. Consent decree entered. Media present. Teresa covered it. Afterward, a reporter asked, Mr. Holloway, you could have cut off their water. Why didn't you? Because that's not who my grandfather was, and it's not who I am. He believed in being a good neighbor, even when others weren't. Any message from Miss Voss? I hope she finds peace. Anger's exhausting. That Tuesday, I was fixing the roof when I heard a car. Marla's black SUV. She got out, looked smaller, defeated. I need to say something, she said. Okay, I'm listening. I didn't know. When I became HOA president, the developer told me the road was ours. I believed him. Then you showed up, and I looked stupid. I told everyone I was protecting them. You could have just talked to me. I tried. I know now, but I needed to be right. Roger lost his job over that ethics thing. Being HOA president was my identity. I just couldn't lose that too. I saw it then. Not evil, just pride. I'm sorry, she said. For the cops, the gates, all of it. Sorry doesn't fix it, I said. No, but it's a start. What will you do now? Sell the house and move to Utah near our daughter. Roger needs a reset, so do I. I hope it works out, she hesitated. For what it's worth, your grandfather would be proud. Not of the fighting, but of how you ended it. She drove off. I stood there, not triumphant, just finished. Friday, June 6th, the historical marker ceremony. The HOA made it a barbecue. Families, kids, laughter. 35 households showed. Local news called it Community Rebuilds After Property War. I gave a short speech. My grandfather built this valley with his hands. He sold part of it because he believed in sharing it. I'm not your landlord or your enemy. I just want to honor that legacy. Then I announced 3 initiatives. 1. A conservation easement protecting 800 acres from development forever. 2. A public hiking trail, 3.2 miles to the ridge, open by permit to residents and locals. And 3. The Pop Holloway Memorial Scholarship, $5,000 a year for a Larkspur senior writing on conservation and stewardship. I'm funding 5 years myself, hoping for donations later. The crowd applauded. Thomas came up. You didn't have to do this, Pop used to say the land doesn't belong to us. We borrow it from our grandkids. Media coverage blew up. Teresa's follow-up from property war to conservation win. The Denver Post picked it up. Outdoor groups praised it. Lawmakers began drafting a bill requiring HOAs to disclose boundary and easement info to buyers. One afternoon, Sandra brought her grandson Tyler to see the spring house for a school project. "Can you show me how Pop built it?" he asked. We walked up together. I told stories of Pop mixing concrete by hand, laying stones, channeling water. Sandra smiled. 6 months ago, I'd never have believed this. Pop always said the best revenge is building something that lasts. Marla's not your enemy anymore. No, just someone who made mistakes. That summer, I finalized the conservation easement with Colorado Open Lands. 800 acres locked forever. The director said, "You're setting an example." Pop had called it taking care of the land. By September, the new trail opened. Property values in Ridgehaven rose 8%. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Sandra emailed the data. Turns out protecting the valley helped everyone. I framed the article with a note. Marla was right about property values. She just didn't know how. The scholarship fund grew to $12,000 the first year with the community donations. On October 3rd, I handed the first check, $7,500 total, to Jasmine Lee, a senior wanting to study environmental science. Her essay spoke of stewardship and legacy. She cried. Her mom cried. I barely held it together. Afterward, I visited Pop's grave. "Hey, Pop, Valley's safe. Scholarship's real. Trails are open. You'd be proud, not of the fight, but of how it ended." The breeze moved through the pines like an answer. October morning, 6 months after the first locked gate, I sat on the porch drinking coffee. My phone buzzed. Email from Teresa, forwarding a letter postmarked Utah. From Marla. "Saw the news about the scholarship. That's a good thing you're doing. Sorry I made it harder. Hope the Valley treats you well. M." I didn't reply, but I kept it for closure. If you're facing an HOA, a power-hungry neighbor, or anyone who thinks authority outweighs your rights, here's what I learned. First, document everything. Every call, every letter, every threat. Second, know what you actually own. Get a survey, a title report. Don't assume. Third, find good allies. Elaine, Ray, Deputy Mercer, Thomas. I couldn't have done it alone. Fourth, play the long game. Marla won a few rounds, but she lost the war because she fought with ego instead of patience. And finally, when you win, build something. Don't just tear down your enemy. Create something they can't destroy. Pop's Valley is protected now forever. No matter who comes next, no matter what HOA tries, what stunt, 800 acres will stay safe. That's a win. If this story spoke to you, share it. Someone out there needs to hear they don't have to roll over when authority overreaches. And if you're in your own property fight, drop a comment. Let's build a community of people who know their rights and aren't afraid to stand on them. Thanks for listening. Now go check your property deed. Trust me.